So welcome to Hope Church Adult Education. This is our first 2025 Adult Ed session. This month in January, we're featuring some of our Hope Church partners, people whom through our benevolences we support, including Humanity for Prisoners. I thought I'd begin just by reminding us of why we're here today, why the work of this organization is being done, by recalling the words of Jesus to his followers in the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus said, "All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people from one another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundations of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?' And the king will answer, 'Truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these brothers and sisters, you did it to me.'" Humanity for Prisoners has a ready answer when those questions come. And so does another Hope Church supporting organization, Shakespeare Behind Bars, by our own Kurt Tofflin, whom we've had here speaking at Adult Ed previously. Also answering Jesus' call to be there behind bars, supporting the prisoners. So Humanity for Prisoners, as we'll hear, and I don't want to steal the thunder that's coming, answers Jesus' mandate by engaging and supporting people in Michigan prisons. It's an Ottawa County-based organization that provides personalized problem-solving services of the sort that we'll see described shortly. And so we've welcomed, first of all, its Executive Director, President, and CEO, Mark Hartman. Mark is a native of upstate New York, a graduate of Syracuse University, who gravitated to the Pacific Northwest, my home territory, which took him into stints working as an executive for about a dozen years with the Boeing Company, during which he took a master's in business administration at Seattle University. Following which, back in Michigan, he ended up doing, I don't want to put too lightly, but like a 12-year internship preparing for this role by serving unjustly, the founder of Humanity for Prisoners tells me, behind bars in Michigan prisons. And while he was there, he took a bachelor's in the Calvin Prison University Ministry Program. That is a second college degree emphasizing faith and community leadership, which is exactly what he's now doing with Shakespeare Behind Bars. The founder of Humanity for Prisoners, Doug Chapkus, tells me that, quote, "Mark's incredible education and business background, combined with a 12-year experience in the hands of the Michigan Department of Corrections, has helped to make him an invaluable leader of our mission." And he's accompanied by Sarah Ebidon, who for the last 4 years has been the volunteer coordinator while also assisting in client management and other administrative duties. And Sarah has a wonderful educational and experiential background to prepare her for her work with with Humanity for Prisoners. She did training at Muskegon Community College in criminal justice. She took a BS at Grand Valley in legal studies and criminal justice. She did an internship with the Muskegon County Public Defender Office. So obviously she has a big heart also for people who have been behind bars. And I'm told that at age 27, she has made a huge impact on the work of Humanity for Prisoners and is fully capable of running the entire office if ever necessary. So high praise for you both. Welcome to Hope Church. We're delighted to be supporting you. Some of us individually are supporting Humanity for Prisoners and Shakespeare Behind Bars. And so I'm thrilled to have you explain your work to us and your history. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Dave. And thank you for inviting us to come here and present a little bit about our history and the work we do and the challenges that lie ahead. Thank you, Susie. I want to begin by not only expressing our gratitude for the opportunity to share our organization with you, but I want to talk a little bit about our origin story. And our origin story begins with the Maurice Carter story. Maurice Carter, his story is a travesty. Maurice Carter was a man who served 29 years in prison unjustly, and he became the object of our founder, Doug Japkis's quest for freedom. And Maurice's story begins in the early 70s, 1970s, in Benton Harbor, Michigan, an area that has had its challenges with two systems of justice. Justice for the haves and justice for the have-nots, and that's well documented. Maurice's story, he was a man from Gary, Indiana, visiting family and friends in Benton Harbor, Michigan. I believe it was 1973. And there was a police officer, an off-duty police officer, who was shot in a local record shop in Benton Harbor. Maurice was questioned, released. 2 years later, he was charged with that crime, with nothing more than eyewitness testimony. He was prosecuted in Berrien County, Michigan, incarcerated, given a life sentence, and served 29 years of that sentence before ultimately being released on a compassionate release, humanitarian release. So our founder, Doug, has written a book on that experience. It's called Sweet Freedom, and there are copies of this book available on the center table in the back. I would encourage you to read it if you haven't read it already. I'm just going to hit the highlights of that story. The founding of HfP occurred as a result of the inspiration of Maurice Carter, who impressed upon our founder, Doug, that there were hundreds of individuals in Michigan prisons similarly situated as him, either wrongfully convicted or over-sentenced. And the organization was founded nearly 24 years ago, so this is our 24th year. And it was initially started as an innocence organization, which evolved into a human services organization serving incarcerated men and women throughout the state of Michigan. Why this is so personal to me, as Dave alluded to, I served 12 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections. I also had the common shared experience with Maurice of having been prosecuted in Berrien County, Michigan. And I was an out-of-state resident. My case was not personal to anybody in the community, just like Maurice's case was not personal to anyone in the community. So I read this book. It was given to me by a man at the Brooks Correctional Facility in Muskegon in the first 6 months I was in prison. And I felt like I was reading elements of my own story because a lot of the names were the same. And I was just flabbergasted when I read the story. I thought, how, is this just a way of doing business there, or what? How can this happen? And I was so impacted by the book that I reached out to Doug. I wrote him a letter at the publishing company, which did not get to him. It was returned to me. So I reached out to a journalist mentioned in the book, and I sent that letter to the journalist, and he saw to it that Doug received it. And then lo and behold, one day, Doug Japkus walked into the prison. I got called for a visit. I didn't know who was coming to visit me because all my family and friends were hundreds and even thousands of miles away. And it was Doug. And that visit, it just swelled my heart with hope, and that someone would take the time to come visit me, hear my story, show compassion and empathy. And that began a very long and fruitful friendship between Doug and I. And he's like, in some ways he's like an older brother, and in some ways he's like a father figure. And we have been collaborating since 2009. And I love the man. And it is an absolute privilege for me to be able to carry on his legacy and his work at Humanity for Prisoners. So I want to share a little bit about a film. It's called Wronged, the Maurice Carter story. It's a documentary that we commissioned to have produced last year by a very, very talented filmmaker named Nathan Rules. If any of you have seen the documentary, the award-winning documentary that premiered and was screened in 2023, called Behind Our Walls, it's the story of the Calvin Prison Initiative. The Calvin Prison Initiative was one of the highlights of my time behind bars, as well as Shakespeare Behind Bars. Those were two programs that forever changed the trajectory of my life, as did Doug's book. So I just want to share the trailer to this documentary with each of you so that if you're interested in watching the documentary, we would be happy to bring it to you.
Wrongful convictions are America's dirty little secret. Our justice system does not want anyone to know that this is happening. Our prisons are filled with people that were sent to prison for crimes they didn't commit, and science later proved they didn't.
Well, the government admits to about probably 3% of prisoners who are wrongly convicted. That's by their admission.
I believe that if people really knew the number of people in prison who were wrongfully convicted, that they would be amazed. This has become normal in our system.
I've heard tales of egregious conduct leading to wrongful convictions. In Michigan, I've never seen anything like it before I got involved with this case, and I've never seen anything like it after I got involved with this case.
Maurice had been wrongly convicted, but we had a court that just wouldn't budge, a system that would not budge.
I felt like I had taken a step back in time and into the Deep South.
It's a quintessential causes of wrongful conviction case.
Just want to quickly mention that we'll be screening this film throughout the state throughout 2025. And I'll say more about that later in the presentation. But we're very, very proud of this work. And we would love to bring it to Hope Church and to show you the full film. Unfortunately, there just isn't time to do it today with our presentation. But we wanted to give you a teaser with the trailer. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to my co-presenter, Sarah Ebidon, and she's going to talk about our work. Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Can you click? Thanks.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Sarah. Thanks for being here today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what HfP looks like today and the work that we're doing today. In this photo, this was one of the screenings that we did of the documentary that you just watched the trailer for. This was at Cooley Law School. And that's our founder in the middle, with a couple of former clients who are also exonerees. Can you click? Thanks. So in the past we did innocence work, but today we're not doing any legal work. What we're doing is providing personalized problem-solving services for people who are incarcerated in Michigan's prison system. So essentially, we want every person in prison to know that they matter, regardless of their circumstances. Currently, our staff consists of 4 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We also have a team of about 14 volunteers actively, and then also 14 board members. And then some of the services that we're providing today to our clients include medical or healthcare advocacy, which ranges from medical care to dental to vision, mental health, substance abuse. So it could be helping a client make sure that they get their insulin, make sure that their medications are being looked over and that they're getting off-care appointments, off-site appointments for chronic illness, helping them get their glasses, all kinds of different things on the healthcare end. So we also, can you click a few times? Thanks. Another service that we're providing is assistance with in-house issues. So people who are in prison experience all different kinds of issues. I mean, it's really a wide range of things. And we're just trying to help them through those issues one-on-one. Sometimes they don't know what the next step might be or who they should contact for assistance. This could be issues with visitation rights or making sure they have the correct diet, and a wide range of things. We also are helping prisoners reconnect with their estranged loved ones. So we have prisoners who are parents, children, siblings who have lost contact with their parents, children, siblings, and other family members. So one of the things that we're helping them with is reconnect with those people who they've lost contact with. We also do parole board preparation. That involves giving them guidance through the parole board process so that when they're preparing to go see the parole board, they know what to expect. They know how to kind of navigate that process. We write support letters for them to the parole board. We go to their hearings to support them. We also represent them in their public hearings. And commutation assistance, commutation are applications, or pardons. Commutation and pardons are applications that prisoners can file every 2 years to the governor to be released from prison. So we're also helping them with those applications. We're helping them construct their applications, walk them through the process, help them understand the process better, offering them insight in how they can improve their applications. We also offer like typing services, so that kind of falls into the same category. They need help writing cover letters or other letters to other offices and organizations. And then right now we serve about, well, based on new data, we just changed our client data system. So based on new data, we have about 3,400 active clients that we serve, but over the course of our organization's history, we've served approximately 30,000 prisoners in Michigan, which equates to about a third of our prison community. And last but not least, but very, very important, we offer reentry assistance to prisoners. So like I said before, we will help walk them through that parole board process. And once they receive a parole, then we will help them with reentry assistance. We will provide them with resources and also provide referrals to one of our partners, which is University of Michigan's Parole Preparation Project, and they also help them with some things that our organization doesn't necessarily cover, such as like housing, employment, and just readjusting to today's society. So now we are going to show another short video. This short video is a former client. His name is Dwayne Williams. Oh wait, no, we're not going to show that yet. That's right. Okay, sorry about that. I forgot about this. Okay, so here we have some testimonials from a few of our clients. Some are current clients and some are former clients. The first one on the far left is from a client who we helped reconnect with his daughter, who he hadn't had contact with in over a decade. And I will just read it out loud just in case there's anybody who can't see it. It says, I have not had contact with my daughter for 10 plus years. I reached out to HfP and I was paired up with Ron, who at first ran into some brick walls. Ron's a volunteer of ours, very dedicated people search volunteer. Ron was very professional and went above and beyond the call of duty. I am proud to say that my daughter and I are now communicating and building and repairing our relationship. Thank you for turning my dream into a successful reunion. This would not have been possible without your organization. So this is one example of a successful reconnection between two loved ones who haven't been able to connect otherwise. The testimonial in the middle comes from a former client who requested some reentry information from us prior to his release. He was incarcerated at a very young age and did about 20 years in prison and was coming up on an unexpected release. And he wrote to us, "Hurry up and wait is the phrase prisoners use in describing the system in which we are forced to be punctual while the powers that be are free to keep you in limbo for an undetermined amount of time, without reason or accountability. The lack of respect, consideration, and professionalism day in and day out can make a man feel less than human. We've come to expect hurry up and wait. Thus, I was shocked by the compassion, fluidity, and thoroughness of HfP's response. I walked into a day room and overheard a conversation about a man on his way home who landed a job, and HfP was who he credited for the resource. With 20 months left, I felt I could use those same resources, and 12 hours later, I became a client. One of your staff was incredibly kind and instantly accommodating. Please extend my gratitude and accept this donation. I pray that it helps to make someone else feel the way that you made me feel, human." So along with this thank you note, we received a donation from this former client, which is very generous and impressive considering prisoners do not make very much in their prison jobs. And then this last testimonial that we have on the far right-hand side is from a client who received health care assistance from Susie Greenbauer, who is in our office and handles most of our clients' medical and health care issues. And he wrote, "My insulin was given to me almost immediately after you contacted the warden, and the orders for the rest of my medication were placed at the same time. I had to receive an IV due to the condition my body was in, but I am feeling much better now. I can only imagine how much worse shape my body would be in if the facility had continued to make me wait. Your organization has helped me immensely, and I truly appreciate everything you do for those of us in prison." So these are just a few examples of thanks that we have received after providing some of our services to some of our clients. So now we are going to show another short video from a former client whose name is Dwayne Williams, and he's going to talk about some of his time incarcerated, and then he's also going to talk about how our services assisted him in gaining his freedom.
I spent 11 years and 10 months in prison for something that I didn't do. The effects of it, it's like I still don't understand. I don't understand this. I don't understand this. I don't understand why for no reason I do this. I had to constantly keep doing things. I had to constantly keep making moves because so many people weren't listening to me. So I had to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and just never got a chance to relax. And when you're just an inmate sitting in prison saying I'm innocent, nobody's listening to you. I wrote so many letters that I still got blisters on my hands, and I wrote politicians, national, local, from the mayor of the city of Detroit to the president of the United States. I wrote somebody everywhere. Nobody listened. Nobody paid attention. Well, Humanity for Prisons was the first organization that I know of that really responded to you, that did the things that you asked, and like, that was a beautiful thing. And when you don't have anybody, that means a lot. They do FOIAs, and I used to always think that I wanted to start an organization because I had an idea that I was gonna get out, but I would think that I wanted to start an organization that did FOIAs for people, because that's a lot of times those Freedom of Information Act requests help people, and this is how a lot of people, when you read through cases in the law library, this is how they ended up getting out through FOIAs, but prisoners can't do them. So if you don't have any family in the world, or you don't have money because sometimes they charge you, then the information that can set you free, you might not never be able to obtain simply because you don't have anybody. Well, Humanity for Prisons was the first organization that I know of that would get FOIAs, and even something in my case that freed me, that technically it came from an FYA from Humanity for Prisoners. So, I mean, what if they wouldn't have been there? Then maybe I'd still be in prison now.
Dwayne's story is a very powerful story. It reinforces for me the significance of the work we do. It makes a tremendous difference, positive difference in the life of an incarcerated man or woman in Michigan's prison. And when I think about the fact we are a statewide organization, the work we do extends across the state. But we're also in many ways a local organization, a regional organization, a West Michigan organization that is closely connected to the people incarcerated in West Michigan prisons, in Manistee, in Muskegon, in Ionia, Carson City. It's because of our proximity to so many of these facilities that we get to do much of the hands-on work we've done. I just want to share with all of you, we've done a lot of legislative policy and personal advocacy this past year, a great deal of it. And yesterday I had the privilege of taking a former client who's now been free 25 days. He walked out of prison, out of Muskegon Correctional Facility, less than 4 weeks ago on December 10th. And he happens to be a friend of mine from the Calvin Prison Initiative. But the important thing is that I got to be with this gentleman, his name is Sean, while he took his road skills driving test. And he passed his test. And it was something that he never, ever expected to do again for the rest of his life. He was sentenced to die in prison. He had a life without parole sentence. And because he committed his offense when he was 18 years old, and because the Michigan Supreme Court has applied the juvenile life without parole high court ruling to 18-year-olds in Michigan, he was given the second chance of a resentencing hearing, which I was privileged to attend in Bay City, Michigan, back in June, and speak on his behalf to the court. And I can't tell you how gratifying that is. And it's the privilege of making a positive difference in somebody's life that makes this work so personal and so meaningful to me. And it's not about me, it's about the client. It's about them and giving them hope and encouragement for the future. I want to talk a little bit about our challenges going forward. We have continuous challenges with adequate health care. Health care is horrific. I mean, it's almost the equivalent of no care. Take an ibuprofen and go back and lay on your bunk is the refrain that a lot of people hear. Sarah alluded to the wages, how prison wages and prison jobs have just evaporated. Post-pandemic, people spend a lot more time locked down, alienated and isolated on the inside than I can ever remember. I mean, the pandemic was almost an excuse for administrations at many facilities throughout the state to lock people down and keep them locked down for extended periods of time with no recreation, no physical activity, no prison programming, such as Shakespeare Behind Bars or the Urban Ministry Institute or Prison Fellowship or hobbycraft programs, the things like that really, really help people grow personally, grow spiritually, and transform into better human beings. Compassionate release is another area that there was an amended bill this year to permit consideration for compassionate release, but it's got to be initiated by the Bureau of Healthcare Services. And we're not seeing a lot of movement on that. They only expect to release 10 to 15 people per year. In the previous years that this bill, since it had been passed in 2019, they only released one person. And we know that there are many, many men and women who are aging and who have aged out of crime, who are no longer a threat to anyone in society. They're not capable of even caring for themselves. And I think what we need to do is we need to be more active on compassionate release. Visitation rights and alienation from family and supporters is a common complaint that we receive, if not every day, every week. The overuse of administrative segregation, solitary confinement, and the loss of privileges, that's a routine occurrence in prison. People are just locked in their cell, like animals. And the access to resources. If you can't get out of your cell and you can't use the JPay kiosk and you can't use the telephones and you can't visit your family, you don't have access to resources. 90%, more than 90% of the people who are incarcerated in Michigan will one day come home, okay? And just here in the Ottawa County community, 1 in 4 people convicted of a felony offense is sentenced to prison. They're committed to a prison sentence. We serve a lot of people from Ottawa County, a lot of people from the Tri-Cities area. South Muskegon County, Ottawa County, North and South Ottawa County, Western Kent County. We are a statewide organization, but people know we're based in West Michigan. And a lot of people in other parts of the state don't even know we exist. The Upper Peninsula, Northern Michigan, a few do, but not nearly as many as do in West Michigan. There are challenges on the outside as well. I want to just mention that reentry we're not a reentry organization. Historically, we have not been a reentry organization, but we find ourselves doing more and more reentry support. Examples of that are the reentry preparedness packets that we send out, parole preparation packets, the parole preparation program. We're partnering with other organizations. We're learning to become more efficient. The things that we can't do day in, day out due to our limited resources, we coordinate and we partner with other nonprofits around the state that specialize in those things. There's an organization based in Lansing that solely focused on solitary confinement and visitation. And they have more resources to dedicate to those problems than we do. But we've learned to partner with them and cultivate relationships, and we can triage some of that work to them, and they do the same with us. So it's a cooperative relationship. Housing, technology, you know, when you're locked up for decades and you've never seen a cell phone, let alone a smartphone, you could probably take a college course just on how to use, you know, an iPad or a smartphone. I considered myself pre-incarceration a pretty avid user of technology and a proficient one. But when I got out in 2020, after 12 years, my kids had to show me how to use a smartphone. You know, I'm not ashamed to admit that. You know, I had to learn over, you know. And people who've never seen that technology are baffled by it. The stigmas surrounding prisoners and returning citizens. We see disproportionate treatment in how people with certain offenses are treated. Sadly, those with criminal sexual conduct convictions are turned away from housing opportunities, employment opportunities, as a matter of policy. And that's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate, because no one should be defined by the worst thing they've ever done in their life, their worst thought, their worst decision, their worst day, their worst moment. You know, we're all capable of being redeemed. I mean, one of our core beliefs and our guiding principles is that we are all created in the image of God, and we are all capable of being redeemed. And we're all worthy of forgiveness, of God's forgiveness. And we should forgive one another. I don't want to sound too preachy here, but that's what we believe, and that's what we live. It doesn't matter to us what someone's conviction is. It doesn't matter to us whether someone's never going to return to society if they're doing a natural life sentence. We're going to stand by them, and we're going to walk with them on their journey. I mentioned legislative and policy advocacy. We've done more of that in the past year than I think we've done in a long time. And one of the things that I'm especially proud of was the opportunity to go to Lansing with one of our team members, Susie, here in the front, and to participate in a House subcommittee hearing on an amendment to the Freedom of Information Act of 1994. I got to testify before the House on that bill, and it was in committee at the time. That's the one that Dwayne Williams talked about, the Freedom of Information Act requests that Humanity for Prisoners initiated on his behalf that led to the discovery of the exculpatory evidence that freed him. That is amazing. Now, that was before my time with the organization. I was still inside doing work on the inside for Doug, but that's a proud moment for Humanity for Prisoners. And it's because of the support we receive that that's even made possible. I want to talk to you, I want to conclude this segment with another testimonial from one of our former clients, Adam Grant. And this is a powerful video also.
I've been out for 2 weeks. I did 27 years in prison for a bank robbery. and a habitual fourth. I don't want to minimize the fact. I had a record, but I was also 22 years old when I committed this crime, so I made a lot of stupid mistakes early. And the first 10 years of that 27 were fairly typical. I mean, I wasn't really a problem child, but I wasn't exactly conforming to the rules either. I was maneuvering around them. I stopped straddling the fence. I chose a path, and that path was one of redemption. That path was one that I could be proud of, and I stuck to it. The first time I met my friend Doug Chapkes and Humanity for Prisoners was at an ethics seminar that we were holding. I don't remember what the name of it was, but we were talking about this idea of, you know, being a beneficial presence and being there for each other and just doing exactly what Doug talks about doing, is being kind. I think what he gives more than anything to those who are in prison is it's obvious that the people at Humanity for Prisoners care, and their default answer is not no. Their default question is, how can I help? There's no expression for how grateful I am, and it's not just for what Doug and Matt and the others, you know, have done for me specifically, because I've tried really hard to be more of an asset than a burden in anything that I've been a part of. So I haven't had to ask for a lot of help, but it's just nice to know that they're there. And when you reach out to Humanity for Prisoners, they give you that humanity. I believe that the Michigan Department of Corrections owes Humanity for Prisoners and Doug Chapkes a debt of gratitude. There are a lot of people who have hope they wouldn't have had otherwise. There are a lot of people who know that they have somebody who care about them that wouldn't have that otherwise. People who believe that they have a purpose, they have somebody that cares about them and have some hope, are a lot more easily managed and less likely to be violent and do silly things. Even if it just makes them, you know, take a second before they do something stupid. So it's immeasurable. It's not something that can be measured. Do you want to send people back out into the world who you've made bitter? They're going to live next to Doug. They're going to live next to, you know, my mother. They're going to live next to you. You know, that's why we should care about this stuff, is because they have to go somewhere. There is no someplace else. Why I think a person should donate their funds and donate their time to Humanity for Prisoners is because everybody benefits from it. You're not going to get the same return on your dollar anywhere else. It's not going to be lost in administrative costs and stuff like that. These people are working every day. So many things are fresh and so many things are new. Again, I did this at 22. I'm 49 years old now. So in some ways, I'm a grown teenager. So everything's kind of a first. So like when you go into a restaurant or something like that, it's amazing. I know I can choose anything on the menu and they'll bring it to me and I can give specific orders. And I mean, it's nice. Oh. It's hard to explain, you know? It's living.
Heaven.
I just want to mention Adam invoked the name of Matt, and I'm remiss for not mentioning Matt. Matt Chapkes is Doug Chapkes' son. He was my predecessor, and he did a very admirable job of leading the organization for 11 years before I started 2 years ago. Adam's doing some wonderful work also. He started a nonprofit called A Better Way in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and he's assisting people on their reentry journeys, doing great work, and we're partnering with him too. I'm going to ask Sarah to step back up here and take you through the next few slides. Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So looking ahead for our organization, one thing that we always want to do is raise awareness of our organization and the work that we do and the people that we serve. So a couple ways that can be done is, we ask people to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletters. But besides that, we have a handful upcoming screenings of our documentary, Wronged, the Maurice Carter story, which we all watched the trailer to at the beginning of this presentation. Those screenings are listed up here. We have a couple in Grand Rapids, one in Birmingham, and one in Wyoming.
Yes.
Yes. And besides just coming to a screening, if anybody's interested in screening the film at their own church or at another organization or anything like that, we'd be happy to partner with you and set that up as well. We also have had the documentary submitted to several film festivals around the state, which was done by the producer Nate Rules. Yeah. And you can see the film festivals that those were submitted to on the screen as well. So another thing that we wanted to talk about in ways that people can support us is if anybody were to be interested in volunteering. We're always looking for new volunteers. We're always looking for ways to get new community members involved with our organization and with our work. We went through some of our services earlier. Those were just some of our services. So we do use volunteers to help with those services, such as like the reconnecting estranged loved ones and commutation assistance, typing assistance, things like that. But we also have some emerging partnerships coming up as well, which we will need additional volunteer assistance with. One of those partnerships is the Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, which we are partnering with the United Way of the Lakeshore on. So essentially that partnership will provide free books to prisoners' children between the ages of 0 and 5. So before they're starting their school career, they'll be getting free books. I think it's 1 book per month. And that is a way to enhance literacy, but also to enhance the bond between incarcerated parents and their children and those children's caretakers. Another emerging partnership is with Remade Grand Haven. Remade Grand Haven is like a consignment store. So in the way that we're partnering with them, a lot of the prisons have hobby craft programs, and a lot of the prisoners do hobby craft, from crocheting to artwork to knitting hats and blankets, all kinds of stuff, leather work, beading. So essentially what we are working on developing with Remade Grand Haven is a way for prisoners to be able to get their products out into the community. And we would do that through Remade's storefront. So that would also help cultivate relationships with our clients and the community, especially those who are returning to Ottawa County. And then the last partnership is a partnership with St. Patrick St. Anthony's Church in Grand Haven. And that partnership is called Project Window, which is a pen pal program. So if anybody would be interested in that program, we would love to speak with you so that we could figure out what would be the best fit and learn more about the program. And I'm going to leave this last one for Mark.
Yeah.
But thank you all.
Yeah, so we are, we've distributed brochures on each of the chairs. If you're interested in donating to Humanity for Prisoners, there's a QR code you can scan. There's also a remittance envelope. We are 100% donor funded. We don't receive state or federal grants. So please consider us, consider supporting us. If our work resonates with you and you're interested in getting involved in supporting the work of Humanity for Prisoners, we would appreciate that very much. We have some gaps and unmet needs. This is tied to our financial support requests. Last year we had to reduce our staffing by 1 full-time equivalent. unfortunately, due to budget constraints. We currently do not have a dedicated intake specialist. We're hoping to, at minimum, hire at least a part-time intake specialist in 2025. So that is one of our unmet needs right now, and it underscores our need for additional financial support. Okay, at this point, I want to show another quick video, and this is our
Team. Our team.
pardon?
Our video.
Yeah.
You want some time?
Yeah. Should we skip over this?
Yeah, I think I would like to give people a chance to answer.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, what we'll do is we'll wrap up here, and we'll proceed to our Q&A. So, yeah. Yeah.
Wait for a mic to come to you. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Susie. I'm the office manager. Is it? Oh, scared myself. One thing not mentioned is the support that we provide for family members. As an individual who had a family member in prison, and I watched the destruction of my family, I can't tell you how important that is. They call, so if they try to call sometimes the prison itself or healthcare, they do not get return calls. They call us, we get return calls. And so even if we can't solve the problem, that person knows that they're not hopeless anymore. And that makes a very big difference. I wish they had been around when I was going through that with a family member. So that's just another important thing that we do.
Personally, I want to say that I'm involved with an organization that has brochures, and these things are worth 75 cents to $1 a piece. If you're not going to take it home and use it, put it back on the table.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Mark, I mentioned at the beginning that Hope Church and the people in this room are trying to respond to Jesus' mandate to care for the prisoners through two organizations, Shakespeare Behind Bars and Humanity for Prisoners. And you happen to be a unique person that bridges those two organizations. You mentioned that Shakespeare Behind Bars had been significant for you. What did it mean to participate in that program?
It meant a lot. So Shakespeare Behind Bars was a program I got involved with in 2014. That was 5 years after I was incarcerated, 5 to 6. And I was at Brooks Correctional Facility when I became a Shakespeare Behind Bars Circle member. And it employs the restorative circle of healing approach using the dramatic arts to interpret our own life or lived experiences. And I've seen that program transform lives. I've seen it, many of the men I met through that program, I would have stayed in that program had I not been accepted into the Calvin Prison Initiative and transferred to Ionia. But I still remain connected to Shakespeare Behind Bars. There's an outside group that meets weekly on a Zoom call. I participate as often as I can. We had a retreat this past summer. We also traveled to Kentucky to visit the Shakespeare performances there. And there's a camaraderie amongst the Shakespeare alumni that is hard to describe. It's, thank you. Yeah.
I have a question. I've seen a lot of men in the films and men being referred to. Do you also reach out to women in prisons that need this humanity?
We do. There's only one women's prison, Women's Huron Valley complex in Ypsilanti. And actually, Susie and I will be going there on January 28th inside the prison to meet with the women and to talk about our work and to underscore our support for them and to let them know that we are there for them. We do actually receive a lot of requests from women. Not nearly as many as men, but yes, we do.
Yeah, I have a question over here. I think it's fairly understandable that you might have folks that are very hesitant to enter into the lives of prisoners for fear of the risk it might place their families in. And so how do you address that, respecting that people are rightly afraid, perhaps in trying to set boundaries to keep their families safe, and yet on the other hand, we're missing an opportunity to minister to folks. So how do you address that to people?
Can I answer that, Sarah?
Yeah, I can answer that in part probably. From the volunteer aspect of things, so we do allow, like, volunteers can use, you know, how do you say that? Like a fake name? Pseudonyms?
Oh,
pseudonym.
pseudonym.
Yeah, so we do allow our volunteers to use pseudonyms if that makes them more comfortable. No personal information is ever shared. Everything goes through our office. So I think that puts up some safeguards for our volunteers. I know with the Pen Pal programs, like Project Window, and then also another Pen Pal program that we're partnered with, which is called Cards for Prisoners, which are both ran through churches. So like the mail is coming to the church and they're reading it, and then it's going to the Pen Pal, and then it's going through the church. So there's never really any personal information that's divulged to any of our clients.
Right, and I would echo that by saying that first names are generally the only names used, or an anonymized name. Yeah. Yes.
So, kind of in response to that question, and I appreciate how you answered that. I was a school teacher in one of the prisons in Jackson. And one of the things that my students consistently appreciated and told me that they did is that I treated them like human beings. And I think it is important to safeguard ourselves, but at the same time, I think it's also important to realize that nobody on this planet is 100% innocent of never doing anything wrong, right? Yeah, and just that that recognition helps our folks feel valued and seen and heard and respected. Yeah, and I think it's extremely important. I like how you guys handle that, where you don't give out addresses, because you don't want anybody showing up at your door, knock, 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 here I am, you know?
Right.
Right, but yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, we're very cognizant of people's personal privacy and, you know, affirming people's being respectful and, you know, their dignity, and yeah, it's important.
I'm guessing that you may know my pen pal friend Ming Ho.
Yes, I do.
Ming Ho, just for the rest of the folks here, as a 10th grader, committed 2 terrible crimes. Armed robberies, one of which killed somebody, and he has been now in prison for about 28 years. He is a brilliant person who first wrote me after he read my social psychology text, and he found an error in it. And, so we've had correspondence over time. He's completed the Calvin Prison Education Program with straight A's. He's been described by a former prison superintendent who Kurt Tofflin had here on one of his Shakespeare Behind Bars presentations as a model prisoner after a rocky first few years. Yeah. And so he's had a spotless record for 20 years. We Michigan taxpayers are giving him free room and board. He'd much rather be out, although he fears being shipped back to Vietnam under criminal immigrant initiatives of the new administration. And yet he still languishes as a juvenile lifer. Why is that? And in other states, people in his situation have been released back into productive employment and being contributing to society. Do you want to say something about the juvenile life situation here in Michigan? It's not covering everybody, is it?
Well, my understanding is that Ming was resentenced and he received the highest minimum sentence that you could get. So the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that juvenile life without parole is unconstitutional. And Michigan has implemented a term of years sentencing scheme with a statutory maximum of 60 years and a minimum sentence in the range of 25 to 40. So Ming received the highest. He received the highest minimum sentence you could get. I personally believe that was an overreach. Ming is a wonderful person. Much like many people who committed crimes as teenagers, he's nowhere near the person he was when he was a kid. And of course, this gets into the brain science. You know, the neurological adolescent development of the youth brain. So Ming is going to flourish when he's released, and he has a lot of support. There are a lot of people who love him. We certainly love him. It was a pleasure to be a peer of Ming's in the Calvin Prison Initiative and in Shakespeare Behind Bars. Right. And we have profound respect for him.
Right. So, Mark and Sarah, I know you spend a lot of your time thanking those who support you, but on behalf of the people here, I want to thank, and we want to thank you for kind of being our emissaries out there responding to Jesus' call to care deeply for those who are in prison as you were. And so we owe you more gratitude than you owe us. So thank you very much, and thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Larry's family has a lot of people who work in the justice system. And I can say at one Thanksgiving dinner, one of the individuals said she had she works with sentencing and probations, et cetera. And she related a conversation she had with an individual who was about to do reentry. And she said, you know, life, you don't have to live life like this. You don't have to live this way. And he said, no one has ever said that to me before. So thank you, Mark and Sarah, for being people who do show people another positive way and to being that positive influence and way. Thank you. Thank you very much for today. We do appreciate that.
It's our privilege, and thank you for having us. And I guess my parting comment would be, we have a lot of videos and testimonials available on the HfP website as well as the HfP YouTube page. The 4-minute video that would have concluded our presentation is accessible on there. I encourage everyone to look at it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next week, if you look in today's bulletin on page 14, you will see the list of our community partners that David mentioned at the beginning that are happening in January. And next week will be information about the Community Carbon Fund. So I invite you all to come back next week as well. 2025, it's great to be back at Adult Ed. Thank you all very much. Oh yes, yep. You have the brochures in on your chairs, and the book is available as $15 donation if you'd like, but the book is available on the table as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Dave.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. There you go. Thank you so much.
Can I grab your microphone too?
Yes, you.